All right, peeps. On today's episode of The Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be answering all sorts of hot nonsense from YouTube. Lots of gems, lots of Kung Fu is dead as Latin, lots of, this KFG episode has more twists and turns than a Steven Seagal character arc. Let's get to it.
And every day, I practice martial arts.
Yo, Dre, how you doing, man?
I'm doing rather well, Sifu. How about you?
Good. I feel we have very high energy for a Saturday morning today.
High energy.
That's right. We came in very hot this morning.
Oh my
so
God. I
hope
think
that
it might be the turkey pastries over across the street.
Turkish, not turkey pastries.
There's no turkey in them.
Turkish.
There's no
pastries.
turkey.
What's
inside.
turkey pastries?
It's Turkish, okay,
I love
Mikey Deane?
you can always rely on Dre to get something like that wrong.
Mikey Deane told me it was turkey pastries.
No. Turkish.
He said the proper term was turkey because it's English.
We have a Turkish bakery across from City Wing Chun. They have amazing
Thanks,
pastries.
Mikey Deane.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And he's probably just messing
Made me
with
look
you.
like a fool.
Oh no. You don't need Mikey to look like that. All right, Dre, what you got for me today?
All right, now it's the first one out the gate.
All right.
First one,
Okay.
Oscar Menendez.
Oh, it's a Patreon question.
Patreon question. Yes, Patreon question.
That's
How'd
right.
you guess?
Because I'm doing your job for you. That's why.
Yo, 3-part question.
All right.
Outside of WCWT, in your opinion, are other Chinese martial arts doomed to die out like some dead language like Latin? Oh.
Or British English. Okay. All right, what's the second question?
How dare you?
Second, do you believe that Kung Fu movies as we know them are now extinct? And in your opinion, what was the last great Kung Fu movie? Keep up the great work.
Awesome. That's a great question. I know it's a great question because I already answered it for our Patreons. So one of the things I'm doing now is my Patreon supporters, they get first dibs on any questions on the podcast. Mm-hmm. But, sometimes it takes a couple weeks for us to get to any of the questions. So what I do for my Patreons is when they ask me a question, I will actually give them a personalized answer on my cell phone. I'll record it.
Perhaps we should have Dyson as a producer of the show.
No. We don't need Dyson on. No, Patreon is for people who want to support us and give us money. The moment I put that dude on there, everyone's going to stop.
But we can use his time machine and be
Patrons
ahead of the game.
Real people.
Yeah, patrons are real people.
Yeah,
we don't need to.
His time machine will keep us ahead of the game.
Not at all. Not at all. So anyway, what I do for the Patreons is I actually answer the questions pretty much like this. As soon as they write it, now I'm going to give them a video response. And this is something I just started doing on Patreon because I realize it actually sometimes takes a couple weeks before these things come out on episodes. So Oscar already got an answer, which goes on Patreon. So I basically answered the question already. And now I'm going to do it kind of officially on the podcast. So, all right. So the first question, are Chinese martial arts doomed to die out like a dead language like Latin or
British
or Cantonese or British English? All right,
British English.
These dead languages, right?
Pirate English.
Well, I mean that's a good question. I mean, obviously nowadays, the big boy on the block is mixed martial arts and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and those kind of things. So the people who practice Chinese martial arts are usually the kind of very dedicated and kind of hardcore types that really want to learn that specifically, so they have to seek it out, and it's getting harder and harder to find. Obviously, Wing Chun is a little bit different. We have, admittedly a little bit of Wing Chun exceptionalism, not just because we do it, but because, Wing Chun is a style that seems to kind of peak out a little bit differently from some of the other Chinese martial arts in kind of public consciousness, both good and bad. But if we're talking about, let's say, more orthodox Shaolin martial arts or martial arts like Hong Ga or Choi Lei Fut or, even some more rare martial arts like Mantis and things like that. I think that at some point that is going to be very, very difficult to find. If you're not in a city that has a big Chinese population or just a big population in general, if you're not in a New York or an LA or maybe a San Francisco, or Vancouver, Toronto, obviously these major places, I think it's going to be very difficult it's already difficult now to find those styles. We get a lot of inquiries, even for Wing Chun, which is probably slightly more widespread than some of those other martial arts. I get a lot of inquiries for people who want to learn Wing Chun, but they're even just in Pennsylvania, even not that far away, but maybe they're not in Philly or something like that, right? And there's really nothing, right? So if people are asking about Wing Chun training in areas that are not really even that far from where we are right now, you can only imagine if someone really wants to learn, 7-star Mantis or, Bak Mei or any of those kind of martial arts, how extremely difficult it would be, right? Of course, you'll always have like a random dude somewhere who teaches something who happen to move there, but there's no guarantee that everywhere you go, there's like an equal dispersion of these other Chinese martial arts.
Okay.
On top of that, I think Chinese martial arts have got a little bit of a bad reputation in recent years, and I think that's mostly the fault of the Sifus and the students who've kind of been promoting it in kind of a strange way, and maybe not getting the temperature of the room in terms of how martial arts have changed a little bit. So they can come off looking kind of like the old man who's just, he shows up to the club in plaid golf shorts and is like doing the Running Man or something like that when everyone else is doing, I don't know, what do the kids do nowadays? Dab? All right, yeah, that's probably 10 years
Dabbing
old
was
already.
actually 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, speaking of old people who are out of touch, all right, look at me. So I think that it's going to be increasingly more difficult to find those martial arts, and then which means it's also increasingly difficult to find people who are really qualified. Like you might find a guy who learns some Northern Mantis and is like okay at it, but is he like the level of a Lei Kam Wing or something like that, or any of these guys who are like top of the food chain at some point, right? I don't think so. And I think that it's going to become increasingly more difficult to find those martial arts, which is actually one of the reasons why I think it's kind of a good thing that in Hong Kong a few years back, there's a martial arts enthusiast who also happens to be, at least from what I understand, relatively wealthy. His name is Chiu Heng. He also goes by Heng Chao, and he is he's a Hong Kong practitioner in Hong Kong, but he's also a man of means and he has some wealth or whatever. And he's a huge martial arts fan. Although I think he actually does not really like Wing Chun, but that's okay. I barely like Wing Chun, to be honest. I teach Wing Chun and I barely can stand Wing Chun people. All right. So what he did a few years back is he actually took a number of masters from these from some very rare Hakka styles, like Sifu Lee Tin Loi, from Southern Mantis, and he also took some Bak Mei guys, some guys from other strains of Southern Mantis. And what he did is he did really advanced motion capture on all of these guys doing their forms. So what he did is he had them perform all their sets with like the most advanced motion capture rig on. And then, I believe he also recorded them, not just doing their standard forms, but their movements, applications, the weapons and stuff like that. So what he did is he actually created a digital record of these styles, which means that in the very likely event that 2 generations from now, there's really no one who teaches this style at that level, you could basically see a 3D model of these high-level masters performing it. And think about how much technology jumps, recently. I mean, think like maybe in 10 years, they can take all that motion cap and basically create a hologram of the Sifu. And you could, and even if that Sifu is long since gone, you could like walk around them 360 and look at their movements, right?
And then down the line, they can inject that shit inside of our brains and stuff like that.
Exactly. All right. I was.
Let's go
weird?
with that.
I was just about to say that, but you took the words right out of my mouth. And then they can inject that shit. All right.
And he injected it directly.
So
into
I
your
think
brain.
that
It's
in
like the
terms
Matrix,
of,
bro.
I think
You don't get it?
I think that in terms of like preserving those martial arts, I think probably whoever's left in those styles, they probably have to maybe think about doing something like that. Create a really solid digital record of the forms and the methods and the histories and the stories, and be prepared that might be the legacy of that style at some point in the near future, because there's really no one practicing that, right? Also, I think Wing Chun is a little bit different, because in Wing Chun we also spend a fair amount of time practicing with a partner. And I'm not saying that other Chinese martial arts don't, but I'm just saying, like, we have chi sao, so we have this kind of way of interacting with someone where we have to feel, okay, either you can do it or you can't. If I make a mistake, you hit me, right? And then we can spar and we can see you try to punch me, I have to defend it. There's a way to kind of see if what we're doing works. You know, we can spar, we can check it out. But in some very forms-based martial arts, the quality of a practitioner is determined by how well they do the form, how powerfully they execute it, how they can perform certain things. And some of that stuff is really arduous. Like I mentioned a number of times when I trained with Sifu Lee and Lo Wei back in 2015. I mean, that training is so old school. It's no wonder that the modern, you know, as they say in Hong Kong, the youngsters in Hong Kong don't want to endure that. Because it's really, really difficult to do that kind of training. I mean, when Sifu Lee and Lo Wei was teaching the Samchin form, like, I mean, it's arduous. It's hours and hours of just a few movements again and again and again and again. You know what I mean? And he's holding the pole to your chest and you're trying to advance forward and he's holding you back. And it's like just something really old school out of a Kung Fu movie. Well, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, where you didn't have iPads and internet and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, that was also your entertainment.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like going there and like learning these things and being able to focus on something for a while. And I think with the way the current generation is, I don't think that they have that kind of determination to do something like that. I mean, even with my own daughters, like I really try my hardest to make sure that they're like not distracted by, you know, like the iPad and this and that or whatever. But it is an uphill battle, right? Because like we were watching Cobra Kai, which they love, by the way.
Yeah.
I showed them Karate Kid 1 and Karate Kid 2 in over the summer, and they loved it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that too.
And then I started showing them Cobra Kai, and they love it because it's almost like a teen drama, and they're like the perfect age for it, and they love it.
Oh man!
And I'm up to date on all 5 seasons, but with the girls, we're like almost at the end of season 3 right now.
Okay.
So I'm rewatching it with them, right?
That's the season where he falls, or is it season 2?
Hey, no spoilers, all right? Take it
bad,
easy.
my
Take
bad.
it easy, all right?
Yeah, stop that.
Yeah.
So but everyone's seen it already.
No, not everyone has seen it. My daughters haven't seen all of it, and they might be watching this podcast. So hey. Take it easy, all right? But you know, like,
that was coming.
The thing is that they love Cobra Kai, all right? They totally love it. But even just to get them to sit still for an hour on a show that they love, like, you know, my daughter Maria will get up and start doing, like, they're both into rhythmic gymnastics now, and they're quite good. But they'll, like, get up and they'll start doing all that stuff, right? And then she'll like go and walk around. I'm like, Maria, you need to sit in place and watch the show. Otherwise, because she'll walk out of the room for a little bit.
Oh, right.
To go do like 5 cartwheels and then come back and be like, what happened? Right? And I'll be like, we're literally watching it right now, right? And so you have to imagine if the current generation has a hard time sitting through a TV show that they like, all right? Who is going to stand in a horse stance for 20 minutes at a time, holding just these basic hand postures, right? So I think, you know, I mean, even though, and this is not to say that mixed martial arts training isn't tough or jujitsu isn't tough. It's absolutely tough, right? But you're always going to have athletes, and you're always going to have, you know, those kind of people that can do those kind of things, right? Tough guys and athletes and people who are like, you know, naturally strong or aggressive or fighters or whatever, right? You're always going to have those people, right? But a big thing about martial arts in general was that it was available to everyone, right? And you kind of see, like, to really be at a high level in a lot of mixed martial arts and things like that, you need to be like a certain type of person, right? And, you know, I wonder if, like, the average person who's not, like, the most aggressive aggro bro, you know, can really thrive in some of those environments, right? But then are they going to then want to go and do kung fu and do a horse stance for 20 minutes? No. So I have to think that a large number of these martial arts, traditional Chinese martial arts, they're going to die very rapidly, very rapidly. Even in Hong Kong, I took you there. You see, it's, you know, it's harder and harder to find. And Chinese martial arts in Hong Kong, even though they're not as big, as prominent as they used to be, they're still really tribal. All right. So, I mean, it's like they have only a few people doing it, and these people are still kind of at each other's throats for things that happened in the 1950s or something like that, right? It's interesting. Something has changed a little bit in New York. I mean, like the Chinese martial arts community, there's still a Chinese martial arts community here in New York. You have schools in Chinatown, Mdawah, you have Paul Ko, and William Kwok from Practical Wing Chun, and all a number of Moyet's descendants and things like that. And we, in recent years, all seem to be kind of very cool with each other. Whereas like in the 80s, especially among the different Wing Chun factions, it was like a lot of bad blood.
Yeah.
But now it's like the two main Wing Chun guys in New York are me and Sifu William Kwok. And like we're cool with each other. Like it's not the way it was in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like all these people they're like all warring factions or something like that. Yeah. And kind of most of the Kung Fu styles are kind of friendly with each other because it's small. And while you definitely have friendships and showing face in Hong Kong and all that stuff, I mean, spend 20 minutes with any famous Sifu in Hong Kong of any style at dim sum.
Oh, man.
And about 20 minutes in, he's just start bitching about some other Sifu. He start bitching about how someone else in his lineage isn't doing it right, or some other version of his lineage isn't doing it right, or he's just going to bitch about another style altogether. And it's like, and that is such a part of the culture. And this is not something, in my opinion, that's sustainable. So yeah, I think a lot of Chinese Kung Fu styles are probably going to turn into something like Latin, all right? Or Cantonese, or British English.
So when you going to show the girls Karate Kid 3 and the next Karate Kid?
Well, Karate Kid 3 actually is relevant to Cobra Kai, especially seasons 4.
Man,
Take it easy. Hey,
what?
that was a freaking spoiler.
Was that a spoiler?
Oh my God, that was a
really?
5th season spoiler.
Wow.
Dude,
What?
Dre.
Oh.
Zip it.
No,
Zip
no,
it.
I'll make it easy for you, Dre.
Spoiler
right?
alert.
In season 5, we find out that Luke is Darth Vader's son. Feel better now? See?
Ale better. All right.
Hey.
So
Hey, take it easy.
easy. All right. Okay. So, no, I mean, I might show them Karate Kid 3 because it is somewhat relevant to the seasons that are coming up. But
Okay.
Hey, Kung Fu Genius listeners, are you a fan of Wing Chun Kung Fu? Well, if you listen to me, I assume you are. I got great news for KFG fans. Right now, you can get an all-access 1-month free trial subscription to Wing Chun Illustrated magazine. Yes, I said free. Go to WCINewsstand.com and register in the upper right-hand corner. Fill out your email and password and use the code KFG Trial to get your free trial to all the issues from 2011 to the current issue. That's right, all the issues, even the one with this cool guy on the cover. That's me for those of you listening to us on audio. My Kung Fu Genius column is also in all the new issues, as if you needed another reason to get this awesome magazine. Go get your free trial subscription today. For all that information, check out the description below. And now back to me. So the second question was about Kung Fu movies, right?
It was definitely about Kung Fu movies.
Look at him stall.
Do you believe that?
Look at him
Do
stall.
you believe that Kung Fu movies as we know them are now extinct? And in your opinion, what was the last great Kung Fu movie?
All right. So
That's
our
such a great question.
Yeah, that is a really good question. Are Kung Fu movies
Love
extinct?
these Patreon guys.
Yeah, the Patreon guys have the best questions. All right, probably because they give me money.
They don't waste their time
No, but no joke, they have the best questions.
mucking around.
So, I've said it before. I think Kung Fu movies are already dead. I mean, when was the last real great Kung Fu movie? So for me, I think the last Kung Fu movie was probably Kung Fu Killer or Kung Fu Jungle with Donnie Yen. Because even though it's set in a modern time, the actors and everyone who fights in there is essentially doing traditional Chinese martial arts. And it's an homage to old Kung Fu movies. It's an homage to Hong Kong stuntmen. It's got lots of cameos. Raymond Chow is like the last time you see Raymond Chow in anything. And so, as a Kung Fu movie fan, it's like, it's the plot is like just paper thin just to advance the fighting. But I mean, it is, which makes it a Kung Fu movie, right?
You know what I think is the last great Kung Fu movie?
What?
Kung Fury.
No.
No.
All
Fu
right.
Panda.
No. So I think Kung Fu Jungle, Kung Fu Killer is still newer than those movies, all right? Although maybe they may have been a Kung Fu Panda that's come out in between, but
Kung Fu Killer is fantastic.
it is
though.
great, yeah.
It's a really great
And and I'm not.
I haven't seen
I'm not always a huge Donnie Yen fan. I think Donnie Yen is good. Don't get me wrong, but I think some of the stuff Donnie Yen's a little wooden as an actor, and some of the stuff he does, like they did a remake a couple years ago with Donnie Yen of Enter the Fat Dragon. Okay. And,
Whoa.
Yeah, Enter the Fat Dragon was a Sammo Hung film from the late 70s, where basically he,
Who played the Sammo Hung character?
Yeah, that's right. That's funny.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the problem is that film, obviously, for modern sensibilities, is it's like an old Hong Kong comedy. I mean, the original 70-something Enter the Fat Dragon, and it has a lot of stuff that's wildly inappropriate. Lei Hoi Sang is in blackface as Jim Kelly's character. It's wild. It's absolutely it's absolutely wild, right? It's a film that could have only been made in Hong Kong in the late 70s, right? Having said that, and I've said this before, Sammo Hung, in my opinion, does the best Bruce Lee impression of anyone. All right, even though physically he doesn't look like Bruce Lee at all, but when you see him in, like, for example, Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon,
Okay.
or in Enter the Fat Dragon, and you actually watch him, he has Bruce Lee's mannerisms down perfectly, in a way where it's not parody. It's like almost like he can really do it.
He can capture
Whereas
it.
whenever you watch any other dude seriously trying to be Bruce Lee, like in a Bruce Lee exploitation film, it just looks like a bad cartoon of Bruce Lee. Whereas Sammo Hung, who looks nothing like Bruce Lee, somehow pulls it off so much better than all of those guys, right? When he moves, it's just like he's just got it, right? And Enter the Fat Dragon, all right, the unfortunate blackface and weird racial stereotypes notwithstanding, is a classic, and it's great. I mean, it's one of my favorite Sammo Hung movies. He basically plays this like pig farmer or pig herder,
all right,
who's a huge Bruce Lee fan, and he always wears the black tong jong, like the frog button jacket and pants, like the shoes like Bruce Lee wore. And there was like one scene at the beginning where he goes to this store somewhere in Kowloon, and he's looking to get some sunglasses like Bruce Lee. Yeah. So he's there, he puts the sunglasses on, he's looking in the mirror, and he asks the guy who works at the shop, he goes, "Hey, do I look like him?" And on the wall, there's a poster of Bruce Lee wearing sunglasses, right? But right next to the poster of Bruce Lee is a poster of a pig. I believe the pig was wearing sunglasses, right? And when he points at it, the shopkeep looks at the poster of the pig instead of Bruce Lee, and he goes, "Yep."
Yes.
But it's really great. But anyway, like a few years ago, I mean, it just shows you how much we're like in a post-creative world. I mean, like everything now is a reboot. Everything now is a remake, a rehash or whatever. And there's rare times it's like the new Top Gun movie is like the perfect sequel reboot type. Like they did it right with that one. But for the most part, it's just like stop.
I've not seen that yet.
It's really good. So, Donnie Yen did an Enter the Fat Dragon like 2-3 years ago. And it's a comedy, and he's like in kind of a fat suit. And the story it's not the same story as the Sammo Hung one, but it has the same title for some weird reason. And
Strange.
I watched it, I tried to watch it a few months ago, and it was just crap. I had such a hard time. Think about it. I love Bruce Lee. I love Sammo Hung. I think Donnie Yen's a great martial artist. So they remake a movie, Enter the Fat Dragon, which is like a Bruce Lee exploitation movie from the 70s with Donnie. Like, it should have everything where I would go, yeah, it looks like it'll be interesting. It was just, the humor was pure, it was crap. Man. The fighting's CGI, it's just crap. The story's crap, everything's crap. Like, I'm watching this, I'm like, it was really difficult to get through. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, not everything Donnie Yen does turns to gold, right? So I think Kung Fu Killer was the last Kung Fu movie. But Kung Fu movies as a genre have been dead for a very long time. And there's a fantastic documentary about Hong Kong stuntmen that came out recently. I talked about it 1 or 2 times on the podcast already. Sifu David Peterson sent it to me, and it's fantastic. It's basically, it talks about all the famous stuntmen in the history of Hong Kong film, and talks about some of their famous stunts and how they got injured and how the whole stunt industry came to be in Hong Kong. And it's a really fascinating documentary. It came out last year, I think. And it also talks about the current generation of people, like, in Hong Kong training to be stuntmen, and it's like a class of 4 people. You know what I mean? But you have to imagine that the reason why that generation, where you're looking at, the whole Yun family, Yun Wo Peng, or Corey Yun, all of those guys, like, they come from that opera background. So they all knew cinematic martial arts. They all knew martial arts for the stage. They grew up basically on film sets, like Lau Ka Leung, famous Hung Gar master, but his father was also in films, and he basically grew up on the sets of films. So he was able to marry that authentic Kung Fu stuff with how it needs to look on camera.
Wow.
Right? And that's why Lau Kar Leung is a legend. These guys grew up, and even Bruce Lee, even though he didn't make martial art films when he was younger, but Bruce Lee grew up on the sets of film, so he knew filmmaking. He knew about directing and writing and how to shoot stuff, and then he had done TV in the States and done some movies in Hollywood. So when he came to Hong Kong to make those films, even though the first couple movies were very low budget, but he had a massive amount of experience behind the camera and in front of the camera, and he had the martial arts stuff. So when you look at like why were these guys good, you know, all the Siu Fok, the Seven Fortunes, Sammo Hung, Yuen Biu, Yuen Wah, Jackie Chan, all of these guys, they learned Chinese opera, they performed, they started working as low-level stuntmen, so they had like all the film experience, they could do all the stunts and the tumbling, and then they were such good mimics because they had to learn choreography for opera, that if they told Jackie, hey, you have to be a snake-style martial artist for this movie, he would just look at a couple snake shapes, pick it up, and he could fake it. And the same thing with Yuen Wah and Sammo Hung and all these guys, right? So who in the new generation has martial arts chops, has the ability to copy choreography easily, like to be able to look at stuff and pick it up quickly, like a style that they've never done before, right? Who has, the tumbling, the acrobatic background, the discipline, all of that kind of stuff in the new generation? No one, all right? What you have now is CGI. And I tell you, I will take any Shaw Brothers, janky, pink-looking blood Shaw Brothers movie, blood and guts everywhere with really bad reverse, like the guy jumps down, but or jumps up, but you can tell it's just reverse or whatever, right? I will take that shit any day of the week over like all this CGI shit where you know that actor is not really doing it, and it just doesn't look right and it doesn't look real. There is no one to take up this mantle anymore. That generation that could make films like that, not just the actors, but the people who could direct them like that. Is dead. I mean, look, even one of the greatest, Jackie Chan. I can't tell you the last time I watched a Jackie Chan movie. I can't watch any of this because now he's making a lot more money either making movies for mainland China or making some schlocky American films. But those are not the films that he did in Hong Kong. Like, that's not, he doesn't make a police story anymore. He can't. He's too old.
Damn.
So
that's becoming another lost art.
No, it is already. No, it's already gone.
Damn,
all right?
damn.
Because if you look, Kung Fu films, they started to gain popularity in the late 60s. You had obviously sword films, Mo Hap, Wu Xia. Then Bruce Lee came, and then it was all about like, the fist fighting movies, or with a Kun Pang, like fist and weapon kind of movies, right? And then Bruce Lee dies, and that's like a huge vacuum. And then Shaw Brothers uses that as an opportunity to kind of attack back because they lost some ground to Golden Harvest because of Bruce Lee. Then Bruce Lee dies, and then Shaw Brothers kind of hits back. And then Golden Harvest has to find someone new to kind of fill in those shoes. And what you see those guys kind of at their peak, the actors and the directors doing like all the best Kung Fu stuff. Think about all the stuff that came in that late 70s generation, right? Think of all of Lau Kar Leung's masterpieces, 36 Chambers, Heroes of the East, Martial Club, all of those films are so good. And then think of Chang Cheh's stuff, Five Deadly Venoms, Crippled Avengers, all of these movies are amazing. And then look at what they were doing at Golden Harvest. You have Magnificent Butcher. Then later, after Jackie made those movies for Si Yun, then he came back and started making all these huge movies for Golden Harvest, right? And then in the mid 80s, Kung Fu movies were no longer in vogue, like costume Kung Fu movies, because Jackie started to do modern action movies, and then everyone wanted to do modern action movies. And then kind of from the mid 80s until the very early 90s, you really didn't see costume Kung Fu movies anymore. There are no real costume Kung Fu movies. There might be some, but not really from that time. It was all, everyone was trying to match what Jackie was doing, right? So Jackie's, jumping out of, all buses, double-decker buses into buildings and stuff. And then D&B Films is like trying to like hire a bunch of cheap stuntmen from China to like do better than what Jackie could do, and everyone is just basically trying to break each other, right? Oh, wow. I mean, listen to some of those stories that Vincent Lin told on our podcast on season 1. All those crazy stories about the stunts. Vincent Lin is from that time period where they were just making modern action movies in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, right? So he was in that time period where everyone is basically trying to outdo Jackie Chan. And he was also in a movie with Jackie Chan. And then it wasn't until Choi Hak decided to revive Wong Fei Hung as a character in 1991's Once Upon a Time in China, which is just in Chinese titled Wong Fei Hong.
Okay.
And then he very controversially tried to cast Jet Li as Wong Fei Hong, and everyone lost their shit because Jet Li is an actor from mainland China, and Wong Fei Hong is like one of the most famous Southern Chinese folk heroes, meaning Cantonese folk heroes, and Jet Li doesn't speak Cantonese. He understands some Cantonese. I actually recently saw a video of Lau Kar Leung speaking Cantonese to Jet Li, and Jet Li understood, and he basically answered in Mandarin. So I think Jet Li actually understands a fair amount of Cantonese. But it was weird because you had a non-Cantonese speaking actor playing Wong Fei Hong, which is just bizarre. All right. And then it was very controversial, but it became a huge hit. And then that started that early, and then that 1990s Kung Fu rebirth, where they had all of those, Wong Fei Hong movies, and then Jackie Chan did Drunken Master 2, and then you have the whole Once Upon a Time in China series, and then they kind of brought that back for a little bit. But then it went a little overboard with the wires and stuff like that, and then that fad also died. And now you kind of generally have just these big, epic actioners from China, where it's like, they're trying to make everything like Lord of the Rings with these huge battlefield scenes and stuff like that. But those Kung Fu movies, man, they're dead. Absolutely dead.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yep. All right, what else you got for me?
I think you just killed him, KFG. I mean, I watched his soul just die.
Yeah.
I told him that.
He thought I was going to say, no, Kung Fu movies are still around and good.
And then you got that, and that's all I've got to say about that, because we're too sad.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
30 minutes in, okay, we're done. I can't go any further. We started with high energy, and I talked myself into a deep depression.
It is heartbreaking.
I'm going to need therapy after this.
We just need
after this episode.
The true revival.
Kung Fu Buzzkiller.
The Kung Fu
Kung Fu
Messiah.
Buzz Killer, yeah.
Oh, God.
They're going to call me the KFD, Kung Fu Downer. All right. That was the wrong button to press, Mikey. All right.
All right.
Okay, what you got, Dre?
Next up, we got Raid Marinkovic.
I think it's Rade like Sade.
Rade?
Yeah.
Good point. All right. Great episode again.
Awesome.
Your story about the styles, especially Monkey Fist, remind me of a story. Chen Kuan Tai was the first grandmaster that the Shaw brothers took under contract. And he was a master in the monkey style. Also, he was planned to fight choreographer for the big boss. What? He was planned as the fight choreographer for the big boss. But there was some troubles. Do you know what really happened? Nice greetings from Austria.
I love how he always gets Austria and Australia mixed up.
Well, I didn't
All right.
know. I never do that.
Randomly,
I
completely
never do that. I
different
thought I just saw an
countries on the
elevator.
opposite side.
I'm gonna bring him. I'm gonna bring him to Austria one day. Just wait for him to ask someone to put another shrimp on the barbie over there. All right.
I can't wait to go to Austria.
Or go to Australia and he asks for a Wiener Schnitzel.
Oh,
All
Wiener
right?
Schnitzel.
All right.
You know, Christians from Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell him all the time. I always ask him, how's
We know
Australia?
someone from Australia. Sorry. Okay, so all right, so I don't actually know anything about, or I've never heard that Kuan Tai was the original choreographer for the Big Boss. All right, now just because I haven't heard it doesn't mean it's not true. I mean, there's a lot that I don't know. Just as anyone who spends any time with me, right?
Is there?
Yes, the gaps in my knowledge are vast and great. So that might be a better question for someone like a Steve Carriage or a Bay Logan or someone like that. Because off the top of my head, I never heard about Kuan Tai being the original fight choreographer. I do know that the original director for the Big Boss was not Lo Wei. All right, Lo Wei, who later went on to direct The Big Boss. It was someone else, and that guy just absolutely butted heads with Bruce Lee. And that initial director is the one that gave Bruce Lee the nickname of Lei Sam Gek, all right, three-legged Lee, right? Yeah. Which, as I've mentioned many times, the characteristic of that nickname changed over time, right?
Yeah.
The first director called him three-legged Lee because he just saw that Bruce basically threw 3 different types of kicks, like a round kick, a spinning kick, and a side kick. And then it was essentially using that nickname to mean like Bruce was a 3-trick pony and nothing else. He didn't have anything else, right?
Tried to clown him.
Because that first director expected, having worked with other Chinese opera actors, that they can do all the kicks and the tumbling and they can do all this stuff, right? And they also wanted, especially if you see the choreography at the time, it was like very long, drawn out, ta-tung, clang, clang, back, forth, kind of stuff where Bruce Lee wanted to go kind of Kung Fu John Wayne and just whoosh, and one punch across the screen and the guy's off, right? And so that first director just kind of butted heads with Bruce, and then eventually they got rid of him, and then Lo Wei came in, who is someone that Bruce only liked 5% more than the first director, all right? And then Bruce ended up really hating Lo Wei, right? Which is funny. It's not like they replaced them with this director that Bruce ended up being super friends with. They replaced him with a guy that Bruce just like could just, at least for that film, could just barely stand, right?
Oh, man.
The fight choreographer for Golden Harvest at that time was Hon Ying-Geet. And Hong Ying-Geet was the big boss in The Big Boss, the bad guy.
Okay.
So that guy who's the bad guy, he's actually the fight choreographer for Golden Harvest.
That's cool.
Yeah, the older guy. It's kind of funny. They always had Bruce, with the exception of, they always had like the villain was always like some kind of older guy, right? It's like, look at like Han and look at Hon Ying-Geet. It's like, why are they always throwing these geezers at him, right?
The wisdom guys.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're like the big boss final villain geezer, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. But it's interesting that when Bruce made his own film, he put Chuck Norris as the villain, someone who was like same age and bigger build and more physically imposing, right? Yeah. But for his like studio films, it was always like some geezer. They always had him fight, right? So I always thought that Hon Yin-Geet was always the choreographer for Big Boss. And because The Big Boss ended up being a smash hit, it was a very low-budget film. They didn't have high expectations for it, and then it ends up being a huge hit. When Bruce did his second film, Fists of Fury, Hon Yin-Geet is still the official fight choreographer because he, like, his Golden Harvest is a studio, and they have, like, you're the official choreographer, you're the official director. But because Bruce was so popular, they essentially let Bruce choreograph the fight scenes for Fist of Fury. But they didn't want Hon Yin-Geet to lose face because he was technically the choreographer. So they allowed him to choreograph one fight scene in Fist of Fury.
All right.
And when you know that that's the one fight scene that Bruce Lee didn't do, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Okay, so when you watch Fist of Fury, obviously all the fight scenes with Bruce are classic Bruce, right? Big punches, big kicks, all that kind of stuff, right? But then there's one fight scene that Bruce is actually not in the scene at all. And that's when the students are training at the Jingwu Academy, and then the Japanese come in and they're looking for Chen, because he had just beaten up all the Japanese guys. And then so they show up to the school, and then I think they beat up a bunch of people at the school, and the Japanese are fighting the Jingwu students, right? Bruce is not in that scene. That is the one fight scene they let Hon Yin-Geet choreograph. And when you look at all of Bruce's fights, it's all pa, pa, pa. So, it's the Bruce Lee stuff that we know. And when you see that one fight scene, it just looks like a very standard copy and paste kung fu movie, right? So this is the first I've ever heard about Kuan Tai supposedly being the fight choreographer. I don't know why Raymond Chow would have hired Kuan Tai off the bat to be a choreographer, because he was still very green in general as an actor himself. Now, Kuan Tai, although in the question he was titled as a grandmaster, Kuan Tai was not a grandmaster at all in Dyson Pekwa. Dyson Pekwa is his style. It's a monkey and axe fist, right? It's basically, everyone just calls it monkey kung fu. Right. But actually, when you learn that style, you have to learn all the Pekwa first, which is all the axe fist stuff, which is similar to Choi Lei Fut. And then the advanced students can learn monkey, because monkey is very difficult, and it's kind of the more advanced part of it. So it's somewhat mislabeled just as monkey kung fu. Gotcha. Although when you go to a Dyson Pekwa school, from my understanding, you're not going to be doing monkey for a while, right? And the Dyson Pekwa school was run by the late Chan Sao-chung. And oddly enough, I have a certificate from Hong Kong from like this council of masters. They gave me a rank because like Chinese kung fu styles usually don't have any kind of ranking system. So they created this council in Hong Kong of all these like kung fu masters to like rank kung fu masters so that you could say that you had a level, because normally there's no level in there or whatever. So you would have some kind of standing. And my Sibak like signed me up on that thing, and then they gave me like the 8th level master's title or something. It's over there on the wall. You can see it. And that
I think you did show me.
and that certificate
right
is
there on top.
right
left.
behind the dummy there. Yeah, no, on the bottom right, on the way bottom right. And that certificate is signed by Chan Sao Chung. All right, the late Chan Sao Chung, the grandmaster of Dyson Pekwar. So Dyson Pekwar was interesting because it wasn't just like a monkey kung fu style. First of all, Chan Sao Chung, the grandmaster, was a very short guy. I think he was like 4'8" or 4'9".
Wow.
And he and that's why when he performed monkey kung fu, it just looked amazing because he was really short, he was low to the ground, and he was very fast. And so it was like he was like the perfect guy to be the grandmaster of that style.
Okay.
But Dyson Pekwar also differentiated itself from some of the other kung fu schools in a couple ways. One, a number of Dyson Pekwar students also were actors. Because of the axe fist movements and the monkey kung fu, the people who came out of that school were like really well physically conditioned to do things like films. And Kuan Tai was one of Chan Sao Chung's students. And so he was like very well built and, if you can do axe fist and monkey kung fu, then you can pretty much imitate any style that a choreographer is going to ask you to do. Because anything, if you're a monkey kung fu guy and the choreographer says, I need you to be a Wing Chun guy for this movie, that's going to be really easy because you're going to just have to stand upright and do some hand movements. You don't have to go to the ground and do all that kind of stuff. So that's why Dyson Pekwar produced a number of people who went on to become actors and film stars. But Dyson Pekwar was also interesting because, also very successful because they produced a number of full contact fighters. And it seemed that for the full contact fighting, they didn't use monkey kung fu, or I don't know how much axe fist they used, but they started to do a lot of kickboxing and like Thai boxing. So I think Chan Sao Chung was kind of smart in that, when he was sending his boys to go into the full contact tournaments, he basically had them train in either some kind of kickboxing or Thai boxing. So they were going in there as Dyson Pekwar practitioners, but basically they were using maybe Muay Thai mixed in with their Pekwar techniques. And so Kuan Tai was an early champion of the Dyson Pekwar school. He was like a full contact champion.
Okay.
And then he became a movie guy. So I don't know why they would just take some like kid who just won some tournaments. He was like a full contact champion and be like, all right, kid, you're going to be the choreographer for Big Boss. So I've never heard that, but that doesn't mean it's not true. I just may not have heard. I mean, I could totally be wrong on this. I mean, I'm wrong on lots of things. So it's possible. I'd never heard of it. And as far as I knew, it was always Hon Yin Geet was always the fight choreographer for Big Boss. But Kuan Tai then later became kind of one of the stable actors for Run Run Shaw, and he did all sorts of movies, usually playing a good guy, but occasionally like in Crippled Avengers playing a villain. And Kuan Tai still pops up from time to time. He'll still play a role here and there. He was in that Final Master movie, which I always kind of make fun of. He was in that film as well. But Kuan Tai was a serious banger. But even to this day, although he's very senior in the Dyson Pekwar style, he would not be addressed as Grand Master. All right, the Grand Master of that style was Chan Sao Chung, who just recently passed away 3-4 years ago or something like that. Right. So Kuan Tai shouldn't be addressed as a Grand Master, and that's no knock on him. Just like those titles really mean something in Chinese kung fu circles, especially if we're talking about someone who's the head of a style. And at that time, when Kuan Tai, in the early 70s, when he started making movies, he was a full contact champion from the Dyson Pekwar style, but he certainly would not have been a grandmaster and would have been very odd to call him as such at that time. But no, I like Kuan Tai. He's a cool dude. Yeah. What else you got?
You ever met him?
I have not met him.
Okay.
I have on 2 occasions in Hong Kong basically missed meeting
Cross
him.
paths.
Yeah, missed meeting him by very
Okay.
like two sailboats in the night kind of thing, right? But sorry, God bless. Leave that in, Andrew. All right, so just kidding. No, so I've unfortunately missed him a few times. So I know people who know him. He's one of the guys on my list. Like when I go to Hong Kong to go and meet him. Speaking of Hong Kong, all right, Hong Kong just recently lifted the hotel quarantine.
Wow.
Yeah, so that means when you travel there, as far as I understood, you don't have to stay. And maybe that's right now. Maybe that's just for residents. I don't know if that might not apply to tourists. But the fact that they just lifted that for at least for the residents.
Big.
Kind of means that it's probably going to be lifted soon just in general. So as I've mentioned on a number of more recent podcasts about the yearly Hong Kong trip, I think now I'm actually going to officially start planning. The KFG Hong Kong Wing Chun or Hong Kong tour, I should say, right? So it'll be, the tour itself will be 7 days, all right? I'll probably stay for about 2 weeks, but like when people come to join me on the tour, that tour will be 7 days. And it's kind of like morning to evening kind of thing. Like in the morning, we get up, we have our meal, or morning we get up and we have training. We're going to have like probably about an hour of Wing Chun and physical training every day. And then after that, we're going to go eat. We're going to go do, every day is going to be something different, right? So one day we may go to visit Grandmaster Yip Man's grave. Another day we might do Wing Chun related stuff. Another day we might do Bruce Lee related stuff. Another day we might do Kung Fu movie related stuff. Another day I might introduce students to different masters of different styles. And another day we might just do more touristy local stuff. But as you know, there's no better tour guide of Hong Kong than me. I can show stuff even the locals don't know about. So, that tour will be 7 days, and then so what I'll do is very shortly I'm going to come up with pricing for people who want to do the tour with me. So I'll have like, basically I'll charge like a flat rate for the tour, right, for 7 days. And then, of course, because people are coming from everywhere, you have to arrange your own flight and you have to arrange your own accommodations. Although, if people want to like share an Airbnb thing, I think we can do that, but that'll be like a separate thing. So I'll have a couple different options, but we'll probably start booking that soon. And every time I mentioned it, everyone's like, "Give me the info." It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
First of all, cool your horses. All right.
Yeah.
When the Hong Kong trip is available, I will literally make a link with a page that has all the info on there. It's not like you need to have the secret handshake to get it. Once it's official, I'll put it on the podcast and we'll put that information there, and you can just go click the link and pay for it and register.
She might be sold out in 5 seconds.
Yeah, well, I'm only going to I want to ideally just take 12 people.
Right.
I might take some more people like who are City Wing Chun students, but in terms of like podcast fans who want to go there, I can't take more than 12 or maybe 15 tops because I don't want to be walking around Hong Kong with a group of 30 people. It's not tenable. You know how tight Hong Kong is, and it's like I don't want to be walking down, Loyan Gai, ladies market with 30 people with a bullhorn. All right, everyone, come here. What do you see over here? Like, I'm not going to be doing that to it. It's going to be a lot more intimate, right? So that's why I'm going to have it for fewer people. All right. But anyway, it'll be in August of next year, most likely late August. All right. Which is super hot. All right. So if you are not acclimated to like really hot and humid weather, don't complain to me because I'm going in August. Okay. So like deal with it. All right. And if you can't deal with like the super hot weather, then I would advise you don't come because it is super hot in August. All right. As you know, that's when we were there.
Best time.
Yeah, so I first of all, I didn't know there was a secret handshake because I want one.
Yes.
I want to know it. Secondly, the thing that I actually forgot last time when you were talking about this, that I actually want to do when we go there, I want to see the Queen Elizabeth that's in the harbour.
The ship.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the one that like sank or the one that like was damaged or something?
Yeah,
It was a
like
fire or something like
it's
that.
like half sank.
Did we see that?
Yeah. No, but I know about that. Yeah, we could totally do that. We could probably, I think we can see that on the way to Macau.
Yeah, because
when you take the boat to Macau.
It was in The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yes, that's right. Yes. I could probably show you a couple spots from The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah.
All right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's my second favorite.
Show you where Hervé Villachez did his thing.
Yeah.
By the way, if anyone wants to hear any wild Hong Kong stories, you can read Roger Moore's biography where he talks about The Man with the Golden Gun and he talks about Hervé Villachez in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
some
sure.
wild stories about that. Anyway, so anyway, so again, every
This
time I
may
mention the Hong
happen.
Kong trip, everyone's like, "I need to have the information." we will put it out there. We will put it on a bullhorn. Everyone will see it. It's not going to. The tour is not going to be secretly promoted, and you're not going to find out about it. We'll probably do a whole episode on it. We'll probably, everything will be out there. It's just that I need to arrange everything, and I need to double check that the dates are going to work, and I need to double check that the policy, in fact, allows us to travel there.
Yeah.
So, if all those ducks are in a row, we're going to Hong Kong in 2023, man. All right, I'm super excited. I haven't been there since 2019 because of the virus of unknown origins.
I haven't been here since 2017.
18.
18.
Yeah.
I haven't been.
Yeah.
You haven't
All right,
been.
and you colonized the damn place.
Shit.
No, I feel cheated, to be honest.
Yeah, because you're going to go there now, and you're not going to have the same swag you would have
Right.
had you gone there before, say,
Exactly.
96.
No, we
97.
still have the same swag.
No,
I don't know,
we
man.
don't know.
You clearly haven't seen any British expats in Hong Kong hanging out in
no.
Wan Chai at
You
2 in
have
the
not.
morning, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
well, if I do see any of those, you're going to hear me start speaking in an American accent because I do not want to be associated.
No, I totally get it, all right? Look, like,
Can you imagine that?
people always
They
like
gonna gravitate towards him.
No, he I can totally see him using an American accent. I get it. You know
gotta
why?
see this.
Because as an American,
Yeah.
all right, I've never been more embarrassed traveling the world than by other Americans.
Oh, wow.
There've been times when I lived in Germany,
Yeah.
and there were tons of Americans who were in the Heidelberg area because there's a military base there.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're walking in Heidelberg, like down the street there, and there's a bunch of Americans, and they're being loud and obnoxious and embarrassing. And in those moments, I will just straight up pretend to be German. Because there's nothing more and I think that in general you get embarrassed by your own kind when you're outside of where you're from, because sometimes you look at like your own kind is kind of embarrassing itself. All right?
Especially when you're British. We call it Brits abroad, right? You know what I mean? Because
abroad.
they're oftentimes really, really just kind of like yobbish and dumb. And they're the ones that shout loudly about
Yes.
not being foreigners in foreign countries.
Right.
And I'm just like,
Yes. Yeah. Americans are the
thing.
same way, but there are not too many Americans living in Hong Kong. But yeah, I kind of feel it vicariously through them, through you, for the Brits when I'm over there. Oh, goodness. I just go, oh. And then when people come up to me and it's like, no, I'm American. Do you hear this accent? I am not whatever that guy is, all right? No, just kidding. We love the Brits, all right?
yeah, I'm glad someone does.
Yeah. How's the Queen
move.
doing, by the way?
Oh, she's doing all right.
All right. So, next question.
Oh, that sucks.
She's,
All right.
She's chilling with Coolio.
Oh, man.
And DMX.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
man.
fantastic
you
ride.
guys are terrible.
All right, let's
people.
go. Hey, Kung Fu Genius listeners, if you're looking for an easy way to support this podcast, please consider joining the Kung Fu Genius Patreon. You could support for as little as $5 a month and get access to episodes a few days early. Higher levels of support get additional goodies, exclusive content, and even your name in the description. The baller level of support will give you the opportunity to be a Dre for a day and give me a rest from this guy over here. A link for the Kung Fu Genius Patreon page is in the description below. You can also support us by subscribing to the Kung Fu Genius on YouTube, liking this video, and sharing it on your social media platforms. When you subscribe on YouTube, don't forget to hit that bell for notifications so you will know as soon as a new episode or a premiere is available for you to watch. For those of us who listen to us on audio, it's a huge help if you don't just rate the podcast, but also write a review wherever you listen to the Kung Fu Genius, such as Apple or Google Podcasts. I really appreciate it. And now back to me.
All right. Next up, we got Kelvin Dyson.
That's what's up.
All right. Another great episode, Alex.
Awesome.
Couple things to throw at you. First, Steven Seagal as Williams. LOL. Ha! Can you imagine Steven Seagal saying the lines, "Bullshit, Mr. Han Man,
Handman.
Mr. Han Man,"
Have you never seen Enter the Dragon?
And-
Jesus Christ. Who do I have as a podcast host?
and "Man, you come straight out of a comic book"? Can you imagine Steven Seagal saying those lines?
I can't, because Steven Seagal can never put himself in a position where he gets his butt kicked or loses. If you ever hear the famous story about his Saturday Night Live episode.
I was almost about to watch that.
Yeah.
On
You know, the thing
YouTube.
is that he had a really, first of all, he was totally banned from Saturday Night Live after his episode.
Oh, God.
But like, you know, the people who talk about it
sucks.
just talk about like how humorless he was, because he didn't ever want to be the butt of any jokes. he had to take himself seriously all the time. Like he just, there could be no humor that was directed towards him, and he had to be like the total tough guy, right? And even in most of his films, he doesn't ever really seem to have any adversity in the fight scenes.
Yeah.
So he's never like Ralph Macchio, just getting the snot kicked out of him until he remembers, oh, right, I can punch this way. And then everyone cheers him on. You know what's so great about Karate Kid is that he's kind of shitty at karate.
Yeah, he's always getting
his ass beat, right? Yeah. But then he always learns some kind of gimmick that pulls it together at the end, right? The crane kick for Karate Kid 1. For Karate Kid 2, he's got the drum technique with the Compton slap across the face, right? And then for the third movie, it was kata. All right? And so, but it's kind of funny, but like you would never see Steven Seagal get like the stuffing kicked out of him 7 ways like from Sunday. Right. Never seen and then at the end, he just remembers that his sensei said, Steven, punch him in the balls. And then the music changes. And then he goes,
okay.
No, because
what's the adversity that he ever faces?
No, because his ego will not allow him to handle. Like anyone who's ever, I mean, I say it like I'm speaking from experience, but I mean, like I've watched a lot of interviews with people who've worked with him, and they all say the same thing. So I mean, like he would never be able to play Williams because Williams, spoiler alert, gets killed in Enter the Dragon. And he gets his ass kicked by an old man. Oh, man. He kicks Han's metal hand.
It's the hand man.
Yeah.
Han. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Bullshit, Mr. Hand Man. Man, you come right out of a comic book. What's up?
I can say, no, watch every one of his movies, Steven Seagal's.
Okay. Yes.
Watch him against the final boss and see one moment where he might get kicked.
Right.
It never happens.
No.
Like, he always dominates the final boss.
Dominate.
It's just that the fight might last maybe 10 more seconds.
He's like a dominatrix.
Right.
Just dominating.
Really? All right, Scatman Dre.
What?
Yeah, so I cannot actually visualize that because Steven Seagal will never allow himself to be the guy who... Not just a guy who loses, but forget that even someone who faces a modicum of adversity in any of his films. I mean, okay, in Hard to Kill, he gets messed up, and then he goes on this training montage and comes back and wipes the floor with everyone. All right, but that's almost like just to show how badass he is. I can be in a coma and still get all my karate aikido back. Right?
He actually kicks the ass of 3 of the gunmen before one of them finally shoots him.
Right.
That's the other thing.
Yeah. They had to shoot him to win.
They had to shoot him to win.
Yeah. Because they couldn't do it with their karate.
Oh, man.
It just wouldn't happen.
I guess it's just well-written movies.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Usually a well-written movie has to put our protagonist in a situation where the stakes are high, where he's
shit.
Yeah, where it's not clear how this person is going to get out. They have to face some kind of adversity. That's called a character arc. That's called story building, right? If the guy just, and that's like to a certain degree, I think why, Bruce Lee would have had to have changed his tune with his films a little bit. I mean, look at Big Boss. He's the same guy at the end of the movie that he was at the beginning of the movie. The only difference is they killed all his bros. All right? In Fists of Fury, he's the same. Chen doesn't really have a character arc. He just gets more and more pissed off throughout the movie. Okay? In Way of the Dragon, which Bruce Lee did write himself, there's a small character arc where when he first starts fighting Chuck Norris, the way he beat everyone else up, he has some problems. And then he has to adapt and start bouncing around. And that is the summation of Bruce Lee's character arc in Way of the Dragon. Because he's basically just an ass kicker the whole time, right? Bruce Lee's character arc in Enter the Dragon does not exist. He's this badass Shaolin monk at the beginning. And he gets some scratches from Han. But he's just... His character doesn't experience any kind of growth. He kills the dude who's responsible for the death of his sister. He stomps O'Hara, just rah, right? And walks away. And but that doesn't advance the story. It's just like, that dude's the reason why my sister, I'm going to kill that dude. He kills that dude. It's like, all right, back to fighting all the other guys. You see what I mean? He's a superhero. So the thing is that there's no real character arc for any of Bruce Lee's characters, save for like a brief moment in Way of the Dragon where he has. But the thing in Way of the Dragon, it's like he's getting his butt kicked by Chuck Norris, right? Like at first, and then he has to adapt. And you could say, all right, there he has to adapt according to his opponent. But in story writing, that's not a payoff because you would have had to have built that earlier in the film for that to then be a character. Like earlier in the film, you would have to have a scene where Bruce Lee said like, no, Chinese Kung Fu, the way it is, like someone shows him like some boxing thing like this moving around and he's like, oh, that's totally useless. Chinese Kung Fu can beat all that stuff. And like, and you show that he's kind of like a rigid traditionalist.
Yeah, okay.
And then when he's getting beat up at the end, he kind of remembers about that like boxing stuff and then he does it and then he realized, then it would be more of a character arc, right? So Bruce Lee never actually has a character arc, right? But it's not nearly as bad as Steven Seagal.
I think that's why Rocky works so well.
Oh, Rocky's such a great
full
film.
of like adversity, just
full of
coming at
adversity,
him.
right?
And you're just like, damn.
Yeah, I mean the
want this
first
guy to
movie,
win.
is just like pure underdog story, right?
Oh God.
And then the second, it's like he has to deal with all the stuff with Adrian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then in the third one,
Oh, Mr. T is.
but I mean, think of that. In the third, it's such a perfect, like, I think it's actually a very good franchise because look in the third one, he's now rich and he's become comfortable. Yeah. And he kind of lost that hunger. Think of like Conor McGregor's kind of thing, right? Okay. This is a common story for fighters.
Oh, wow.
And then he gets his ass kicked 7 ways from Sunday by B.A. Baracus, a.k.a. Clubber Lang.
First Hulk Hogan, though. Hulk Hogan busted ass.
Yeah, but that was kind of fake. But then he kind of did it for real, right? And it was like, yo, what's going on here? All right,
Baracus
slow your roll. B.A. Baracus put it on him. I ain't getting no plane, Hannibal. And then he has to, but the cool thing is then he goes back to his old rival. You know what I mean? Apollo Creed comes and trains him.
Yeah.
Which is like amazing. That is so, I get goosebumps about that shit, right? Okay.
Sick.
Yeah, and then Rocky 4, all right? Apollo gets killed in an exhibition, and then he's got to go old school. All right, and then Rocky 5 doesn't exist in the canon. We don't talk about that one. All right?
No.
All right? We don't talk about that one. It's not necessary. All right? Okay, Balboa, he comes back older, you know what I mean? And then Creed. I think that, some people have issues with some of the Creed. I think the Creed movies are great. It's a great story because what else are you going to do with it, right? The son of Apollo Creed has to come back, and then he's got to deal with all that shit. That's beautiful.
Canelo's in Creed 3. I think he might play the antagonist.
Is he playing Creed?
No,
They recast him?
I think Canelo's going to be a bad guy.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
all right?
Oh, that's good.
I'm half Cuban, and you know what the Cubans say?
What?
Never trust a redhead who speaks Spanish. All right. No, they don't say that. I made that up.
Foul.
All right, do we have another
but
one?
there's more to that.
Oh, there's more to it. All
There's
right.
more. I didn't even finish this half the question.
All right, here we go. We were just bitching about Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal, man. All right. Yeah, man. Straight out of a comic book. LOL. I think the person who dubbed Bruce Lee's voice was John Little, who dubbed his voice in Warrior's Journey, I believe.
Right.
I do believe you can search for Bruce Lee's real voice in that scene.
That's true.
That scene with the Abbott was added in 1998 for the 25th anniversary of ED. Great episode.
Yeah, that's true. So we talked about that on another episode where I said like that scene where he's talking to the abbot at Sun Monastery, which by the way, if you guys come on the fantastic KFG Hong Kong tour, I will take you to Sun Monastery. Just bring your walking shoes on that day. Because going to Sun Monastery, if you don't take a taxi to the top, the hill is like this.
Damn.
Yeah, so you go up that hill, and it's like so steep, at some point you just have to turn around and walk backwards up the hill just to give your shins a rest. It's pretty, but it's a great walk. It's a great little walk. And it's the oldest Buddhist.
We didn't do that, did we?
No, we didn't do it. I didn't want to take you there because I don't like you.
I don't like this guy.
No, you know what it is?
Bring him up there.
You know what it is? There's so much to do in Hong Kong. And we did so much
We
on
did
our trip there.
a lot.
And there was easily 10 or 15 things that we didn't have a chance to do because there's just so much to do over there, right?
Wow.
But if I have an official tour of Hong Kong with KFG fans, then I have to
gotta
put
happen.
San Monastery there because it's the whole finger pointing away to the moon scene is there, right? And then that walk with the abbot. And they've since actually added like some cardboard cutout of Bruce Lee where he stood so you can kind of stand there and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's you can see it's basically the same as it was in that film.
Oh.
And that location was actually kind of a last minute thing. The guy who plays the abbot, Roy Chiu, that actor, he's actually also made a number of films here in America. Roy Chiu was the guy who played Senzo Tanaka in Bloodsport.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Frank Dukes' sensei is played by a Chinese actor, Roy Chiu. That's the guy who's the abbot in Enter the Dragon.
All right.
And Roy Chiu
right.
was a pilot, like an amateur pilot, like flew small planes, I think, like Cessnas and stuff like that.
Okay.
And when they were looking for a scene, because originally they didn't have that scene in the beginning of Enter the Dragon, and they wanted to punch it up a little bit, have something to further introduce Bruce Lee as kind of a philosophical badass. And Roy Chiu, the abbot, saw that monastery from the airplane.
Wow.
Because that monastery, Qingzhou Monastery, is up by Turnbull, which now Hong Kong is so much more connected than it used to be with the MTR and the buses and everything. You can get you can even get to the new territories like where Yip Man is buried relatively quickly. But in the 70s, that was like a trek to go over there because you didn't have all the public transportation the way you do now.
Okay.
So that was like way off the beaten path. Now you can literally take the MTR to Turnbull and then, take a streetcar or a taxi or whatever there. It's very easy to get there. But back then, that was like a trek. Mm-hmm. And so they went and then shot that. And what's interesting is that, so I think either this commenter or someone else actually posted a link on YouTube which had Bruce's original voice in that scene. Because they did not use that scene in the original release of Enter the Dragon, that scene where he's talking to the abbot, and so I do not hit, it hits all by itself, that whole scene. They cut it out because I think the Warner Brothers thought it was too much talking, too much.
Okay.
It just kind of slows down, especially at the beginning of the movie, right? Especially in an action film, you have to establish everything in the first 10 minutes. You have to establish who's who. You have to establish, what the basic story is, what the stakes are. And I think that kind of preachy scene kind of slowed it down a little bit. But when they re-released it in the late 90s, they put that scene back. But Bruce's voice was redubbed by most likely John Little.
All right.
And you can kind of tell it's not exactly Bruce, right? But someone, which I had never seen before, someone posted a clip of that deleted scene with Bruce's original voice in there. Now, if you remember, all of that stuff had to be redubbed anyway. Or that's because that stuff was shot without sound. And it was in the dubbing studio where Bruce had his first collapse.
Of that movie.
Yeah, of that movie. So, so while I'm listening to that, I'm thinking these are the recordings that Bruce Lee made around May 10th when he had his collapse. So I'm very curious, especially that scene with the abbot. I mean, he could have recorded that on the day he had his first collapse. So that's the other thing that people don't realize is those recordings that Golden Harvest collapse. He was doing dubbing for Enter the Dragon, and I can tell why they didn't use Bruce's original voice when they re-released it. Although you would think it would make sense to just use Bruce's original voice, it sounded super echoey, kind of like our podcast since we got out of the studio.
It makes sense,
right? It like when he says it, he sounds like he's talking in a box, and so it just sounds really weird. Like the audio quality is shit. So that's why they had to, I think, redub it with someone else, even though you can kind of tell it's someone trying to imitate Bruce Lee, and you can always tell it's a little different, right?
They should have Bay Logan come in and do that.
Yeah, Bay's.
Even though he's
Bruce is
4
uncanny.
years old at that time.
Yeah, for the re-release, he could have done it, right?
True.
Yeah. No, I mean, Bay Logan does an uncanny Bruce Lee.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah, where you close your eyes and you're like, wow. And he's got all the little mannerisms and everything like that, right?
You think
in
Bruce
the voice
Lee's
and
doing
everything.
ESMR up in your ear?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. ESMR.
Did you just say ESMR?
Yes.
What is it?
ASMR.
Oh, ASMR.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you keep seeing ass.
So it kind of makes sense. But someone actually, what's going on with you, man?
some
Jesus
weird-
Christ. I understand why they didn't go with it. But yeah, I don't know. What was the question? It's been a long morning. No, that was it. I think he was just saying that. Yeah.
He was just a comment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, have time for one more.
Un mas.
Uno más.
All right, let's try this. Stella Stavropoulou Stella Stavropoulou.
Stella's a big fan of the podcast.
Big time.
She's Greek, all right? And you just butchered the shit out of her name.
The first time I did it,
Yeah.
I got it.
You got Stella right.
Yeah, she's not going to be a big fan of the podcast much
I
longer
know.
if you keep butchering
the
her
first
name.
time she asked a question, or I remember, she said I nailed it.
Yeah, I don't think you
Did
nailed
she,
it
though?
this
She
time.
said I nailed
Did
it.
she say that,
Yeah.
or did you just imagine
No.
that?
Yeah.
In the comments.
Dre
She
has a
said
lot
I-
of, Dre has a lot
in
of
the
conversations
live
with himself.
Comments.
absolutely.
She
All right.
said I
He
nailed
spends
it. Thank you, Stella. All right, this time I kind of butchered it somewhat. Now, hey, KFG, Andre, exclamation point. I love your podcast, especially the episodes from 1 to 84. I have a question for you.
She wrote this comment, I think, on the 84th episode. So she was saying she likes all of them. She wasn't saying she hates 85 through 87.
Which
Yeah.
that's not what I got.
Although I'm not a fan of those episodes.
Yeah,
I also only like them up to 84.
Oh God.
difficult second album.
Oh God. All the pressure.
Yeah, we weren't collaborating well.
Right. Which parts of our body should be more trained and which less to be good at Wing Chun training? Where we need to emphasize more on the warm-up, not to get injured? Thank you.
All right. That's a great question.
So
Of
great.
course, how different people need to train. That's something, it's a specific question for which there's no general answer. All right. Because everyone is different. All right. Depends on your athletic
I'm
background.
not different. I'm the same.
Yeah, you're the same. Everyone is different except you. All right.
I'm the same as everybody. I'm the same as everybody.
Yeah. Everyone here is different
Yeah,
except
except
you.
you.
All right. Okay.
Except you.
That's
All
like
right.
the person.
Yes.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone else is crazy, but I'm sane.
Exactly. No, that's not exactly what.
It's not the same
That's
thing?
not the
No,
same
that's
thing.
no.
It's a different thing.
Okay, after today's episode, I want you to focus on what I said. Everyone is different except you. I just want you to think about what that means, okay?
profound.
Yeah,
All
go,
right.
it's a deep cut.
It's
Go
a
on.
deep cut. That's like that's levels. That's like
Damn. levels
that's
to it.
Inception. That's like 8th level in Inception right there,
Oh,
okay?
deep.
All right. So, it's very difficult to give anyone general like specific advice for a kind of a general question because it depends on the practitioner's athletic background or lack of athletic background, body type, build, what injuries do they have, what parts of their body are
I got
already
all the
well
injuries.
trained, all right, what parts of their body are lacking, okay? Obviously in Wing Chun we use a lot of shoulder stuff. So it's really important to make sure that your shoulders are well maintained because we ask a lot of our shoulders in Wing Chun. So you want to make sure that you keep your shoulders mobile. You want to make sure that, you can move them around in different directions, including in ranges of motion you don't need for Wing Chun so that you're free of impingement. So I would spend a lot of time warming up your shoulders before class. But you also have to warm up your hips, your knees, your ankles, your wrists, everything. So it depends because if someone comes to me and they're already well built, then sometimes the hurdle we have with them is mobility and flexibility. And if someone comes who's like super hyper mobile and they have no problem moving their arms in all sorts of different directions, then with that student we have to work a little bit more on building strength and structure. You see what I mean? So there's no one answer, right? And also then if you have someone who has lots of shoulder injuries, maybe from they were previously, did a lot of iron cross gymnastics or they did a lot of CrossFit or whatever. And they come to me with just messed up shoulders, all right? Then we're going to have to make sure we do a lot of rehabilitative stuff and restoring stuff and make sure that their technique is so good that they're not going to tax their already messed up shoulders, right? So that's why it's almost impossible to answer because it depends on the individual. Obviously, I would say you should do a lot of warm-ups for your shoulders. You should make sure that, but your whole body really needs to be warm for Wing Chun. So you can't just limit it to the shoulders. One thing I would also say that Wing Chun people should practice is also neck strengthening. Because first of all, in Wing Chun, we maintain a relatively upright posture. I mean, of course, some Wing Chun people put their head forward because they adopt some kind of boxing frame or whatever. But in general, let's say even just doing the Siunam Tao, I'm not talking about fighting, you have to keep an upright posture, right? So you need to make sure that your neck is strong and flexible to maintain that. Also, no matter how good you are in martial arts, you can get hit. You might take one, right? So you need to strengthen your neck a little bit, right? And also, even if it's not for Wing Chun. Think of the big ill of today's society, the phone. And we are like this most of the day.
Ouch.
All right? So what we need to do is we need to straighten up our cervical spine and train this.
Look at our phones like this.
I recently got the iron neck. All
Yeah.
right? The thing is awesome.
Yeah.
All right? I would definitely
Using
recommend
it
that.
a lot.
I just started
getting
using
those
it this
reps
week,
in?
but I'm using it more for rehab stuff. I'm not using it to continue. I mean, I look kind of skinny on the podcast, but when people meet me in person, I basically look like an upside down Dorito. All right, I'm just basically this kind of. I'm like SpongeBob SquarePants,
Okay.
right? Short and I'm built like a thumb. All right. So building my neck up is not going to help that at all. It's going to make me look more thumb-like. But the point of it is just, mainly for maintaining good neck posture. Because I even notice sometimes in the podcast, maybe because I'm leaning to the mic, sometimes I'll notice I'm in this position in the podcast. And like if I watch an episode or catch an episode, I look and it just drives me nuts. So it's just something you need to be aware of. Posture in general, shoulders need to be in good condition. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Kung Fu Genius. As always, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the Kung Fu Genius, hit that bell for notifications, and if you have any questions for me to answer on a future episode, go ahead and write them in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm Seagung. And I produce masters. You surpassed us. Your kung fu stiffer than corpse and caskets. City Wing Chun is the house I built. Violate the gate and your blood gets spilt. Alex Richter, always the victor.
1, 2, Dre loves. All right, here we go. So, you just found out what it was. Beep that out, Andrew.
Oh man, the damn screensaver.
Professional as always at the Kung Fu Genius podcast.
Coming out of the traps
I
really
remember
quickly.
the passcode.
I spent a year here one afternoon.
All right. You can edit that out, please.
You got to beep that out or we'll
weird,
get demonetized,
allergies.
Andrew. All right. No, I'm serious. You can't even say that. You can't even talk about that thing. They'll demonetize you. All right. So
what?
beep that out. Yeah. All right.
The C word?
The C word, right?
What?
Yes.
You know,
Fun.
this one's going to be fun for him.
Oh, yeah, he's going to f it up hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Lots of...
Dre, I got a phone call for you. All right.
I'm going to go and get some popcorn because I think we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, we're going to
All
be here
right,
for a while.
what's the first one? Wow. Lots of
It's,
gems.
lots of gems.
Lots of,
The first one is always lots of gems.
lots of, I like the way he's sitting there.
See, that's what Danny's looking like right now.
All right, let's go. Let's go, Dre. You got
tired.
it. You got
Lots of kung fu is dead as Latin.
Beep ba 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 da bop.
Oh.
Ba 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 da ba ba da beep ba 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 da bop. He's a scat man.
He's a scat man.
All right, let's go.
Gems, lots of kung fu is dead as Latin. And lots of,
This episode of
this
KFG
episode of KFG
has more twists and
more
turns
twists and turns
than a
than
Steven.
the Steven Seagal character arc.
That's it.
Well done. Now, if you could just edit that all together in one go, Andrew, that would be the
I love how
easiest.
he's still wrestling with the first one. He's like, "What's the first one? Lots of gems."
Lots of
of
gems.
gems.
All right, people.
Holy shit!
God. Oh my God. That was legitimately fantabulous.
He's a scat man.